U.S. is flexing its military muscle in West Asia as it continues its operations in Yemen against the Houthis. What is the likelihood of U.S. actions worsening the damage inflicted on the Houthis, and will Donald Trump's threats become a harsh reality? Our next report dives into all of the details for you.
The US is beefing up its Navy warship presence in West Asia, with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in a rare move ordering 2 aircraft carriers to be deployed there as soon as next month. Officials say Hegseth signed orders for the USS Carl Vinson, which has been operating in the Pacific, to begin streaming towards West Asia, extending its scheduled deployment by 3 months. This while keeping the USS Harry S. Truman in the region for at least another month. This ship has been conducting operations in the Red Sea against the Houthis and was scheduled to begin heading home to Norfolk, Virginia at the end of March. This is the second time in 6 months that the US has kept 2 carrier strike groups in West Asia. Generally, there's just one in the region. It is also a clear message of deterrence to Iran, the Houthis' main benefactor. US strikes targeting the Houthis entered their 10th day on Monday without a sign of stopping. So far, the US has not offered any specifics on the sites it is striking, though Trump's national security advisor Mike Waltz claims the attacks have taken out the key Houthi leadership, including their head missiler. That's something so far that's not been acknowledged by the Houthis. Though the rebels have downplayed their losses in the past and exaggerated their attacks attempting to target American warships. The Houthis had targeted over 100 merchant vessels with missiles and drones, sinking 2 vessels and killing 4 sailors during their campaign, targeting ships from November 2023 until January of this year. There was a brief pause. But in March, the group threatened to begin targeting Israeli ships again over Israel blocking aid entering the Gaza Strip. This prompted the US and Israeli ally to launch a campaign of airstrikes targeting the rebels. US President Donald Trump even issued a chilling ultimatum. The damage inflicted on them will get progressively worse and they will get completely annihilated. With explosions lighting up the sky over Yemen every day and the toll continuing to rise, the question is, where will this fight between the US and Houthis take Yemen? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Joining me right now is Professor Giorgio Caffiero from Georgetown University. Welcome back to WION. Professor, a second U.S. warship is in the Middle East, and it signals bigger U.S. military actions as we speak right now in the region. Where do you think things are headed at this point?
Yeah, good to be on your network. It's really clear that the conflict dynamics in the Middle East are intensifying when we look at U.S. and Israeli actions. I think obviously right now the Trump administration is focusing on trying to deter Ansar Allah, often referred to as the Houthis. The Biden administration certainly tried to deter the rebel movement from engaging in these maritime attacks, but those efforts did not succeed. And the Trump administration, I think, is trying to just sort of intensify the pressure on the Houthis. And the idea is that this will enable Israel to carry out its war in Gaza without the Houthis really being involved in any manner whatsoever. I don't think the U.S. is going to have an easy time achieving this goal. However, the Houthis have proven to be a very resilient rebel movement. They're very good at sort of moving weapons around. In Yemen, they have a lot of space to operate with. They're still able to get arms brought in from Iran. So I think there is good reason to think that the Trump administration's policies toward Yemen, which don't really have a clear end goal, other than just trying to deter the Houthis in sort of very vague terms. It risks bogging the United States down in the Middle East. And after all, Trump was the presidential candidate who vowed to decrease U.S. Military footprint in the region. And now, 2 months into his second term, it seems that quite the opposite is happening.
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of this is about Iran and the United States. The NSA has demanded immediate dismantling of Tehran's nuclear program. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and others, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, have said that there is no way Iran is going to be able to acquire a nuclear program, a weapon under the Trump administration. How do you see this confrontation heating up in the days to come and its relationship to possibly indirect talks with Iran?
Excellent question. As the Trump administration is trying to get a second nuclear deal, one that's much more restrictive than the 2015 JCPOA, across the line, the Trump administration is obviously trying to put pressure on Iran. And there is this link, of course, between the Houthis and Iran. And so the Trump administration thinks that by intensifying the military strikes against the Houthis, this will put more pressure on Iran to come to the table and make huge concessions in order to strike a nuclear deal that would result in some sanctions relief for the Islamic Republic. What needs to be kept in mind, though, is that as much as the Iranian leadership would like to see another deal that brings about sanctions relief, the Iranians do not want to come across as if they are coming to talks from a position of weakness. And therefore, it's not exactly clear how much success the Trump administration will have with this tactic. Ever since 1979, the Iranians have been operating under a lot of pressure. The idea that putting more pressure on Iran by going after its sort of surrogates, its allies, and its partners in the region is going to get Iran to bend at the knee. I'm pretty skeptical about that. We'll have to see if the Trump administration will have any success on that front. However, there is sort of a dangerous approach the Trump administration is taking in associating Iran with every single thing the Houthis do. Yes, the Iranians give a lot of support to Ansar Allah. There's no state in the world that supports the rebel group nearly as much as Iran, but the Houthis do have their own domestic reasons for engaging in these attacks. The Houthis have agency. They have their own agendas in the region and on the international stage. There's really no evidence that Iran is able to control the Houthis. In fact, the evidence points to instances in which the Houthis do things against the will of the Iranian leadership. So to try to hold Iran accountable for everything the Houthis do, it's a very simplistic approach to dealing with Iran and the Houthis. But I think it can put the United States in a difficult position when it comes to these efforts aimed at negotiating some sort of second nuclear deal.
Right. Great. Well, thank you so much for that. I'm sorry to have to cut you off right there, Professor. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Such valuable information, especially about Houthis and, how these proxies really, to what extent Iran controls them and leads them in these attacks. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you.